Well, shut the door so they don't come in yet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Let me see if I can hear you. Can you talk?
Can you hear me?
Lloyd.
Testing.
Yes.
All right.
Say something else.
Hey Pam, how was your weekend?
That was pretty good. Let me change my. Hold on a second. Let me just put it on my iPhone.
I got you.
Okay. Say something else.
Something else?
Yeah, but there's like I'm gonna say a little bit of a staticky noise.
Okay. Well.
It's nothing. It's nothing major.
All right. I mean, yeah, I'm not 100% on that, but that's the.
Yeah, but and let me turn you. Although I've got you turned all the way up,
Okay.
it's a little bit low.
I'm talking softly, so I can talk a little bit louder.
Well, think about the way that they're going to be talking, and I've got this thing on full blast, and it should be knocking my socks out.
I'm talking into the mic now.
No, it's about the same.
All right.
Just a little bit low. It does have a little bit. Is it unmuted now? Yeah. Hey, so you can talk on the mic.
Pam, how was your weekend?
It was pretty good. How was yours?
Fair to partly cloudy.
You don't hear the stat.
No, I don't hear a static. It sounds fine.
Okay, and it's not low.
I don't know. I have to check it.
I couldn't get free. Hello. Okay.
If you want it, and if you don't.
Miller Lake. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Makes no sense to stress you out.
Yeah. Trying to find
Oh, okay, best news of the day. Yay. No, not just. Yeah.
So yes.
I was saving that spot. Yeah.
I want you to just walk right up there for something to move around.
I know.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm going to call to order the governing board meeting of the St. Johns River Water Management District. Today is November 12th, 2024, and it is 10 a.m. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We're going to do a roll call. I'm going to start with our Vice Chairman, Ms. Gabby White.
Present.
Mr. Oliver. Here. Mr. Peterson. Here. Mr. Atwood. Here. Mr. Bornique. Here, General Burnett. Here, Mr. House. Here. Ms. Price. Here. And my name is Rob Bradley. I'm honored to serve as the chair of the governing board. We're going to start with item 1, Robin Hudson, who is going to do our employee awards. You're recognized, Ms. Hudson.
Good morning. Thank you. First, I'd like to recognize our October Employee of the Month. Congratulations to Yanfeng Zhang, the October Employee of the Month. Yanfeng is a senior engineer scientist in the Bureau of Watershed Management Modeling. He is recognized for demonstrating the district's core values to build trust and achieve results. Yanfeng has been instrumental in reviewing the Western Boundary Model developed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, a high-profile project of critical importance to the district. This complex project requires an eye for detail and the ability to provide quick and accurate responses to inquiries from the district's leadership team. Yanfeng has excelled in both areas, earning the respect and appreciation of both district leadership and his colleagues for his outstanding work. Thank you, Yanfeng, and congratulations. And congratulations to Terry Simmons, the November Employee of the Month. Terry is a human resources consultant in the Office of Human Resources. She is recognized for demonstrating the district's core values to develop partnerships and achieve results. A recent workforce analysis revealed a potential gap in our leadership pipeline. Understanding the importance of nurturing future leaders, our executive director requested implementation of a robust leadership development program. Terry's collaborative approach led to a well-designed leadership program with a rich curriculum and an eager list of participants for the first Leadership Discovery cohort. The program was meaningful and highly successful due to Terry's own demonstration of the district's core values. Congratulations, Terry. Now I'd like to recognize our 5-year service award recipients. The first is Laura Blackburn, Senior Accountant in the Office of Financial Services. Jessica Cardigan, Water Use Analyst in the Bureau of Water Supply Planning. Brian Dolby, Senior Creative Services Specialist in the Office of Strategic Communications and Engagement. Brent Keith, Land Management Specialist in the Bureau of Land Resources. And Karen Neves, Senior Records Information Specialist in the Office of Records and Regulatory Support. I'd like to recognize Chris Kinslow with a 10-year service award. Chris is a land resource specialist in the Bureau of Land Resources. Chris performs a wide variety of duties, most notably preparing management plans and performing management reviews of district lands. Chris is also an extremely valuable member of the fire management team. He is a sought-after subject matter on all things resource management, from radio programming to fire effects to ground cover restoration to forestry. Chris is a member of the emergency management team and serves as the emergency operations coordinator. Chris is a member of the Society of American Foresters and has served as the Florida Division Chair. He has received the Southern Regional Award of Excellence in General Practice of Forestry. Chris was recognized as Employee of the Month in February of 2022. Thank you, Chris, for 10 years of dedicated service to the district. A 15-year service award for Jody Slater, Environmental Scientist 4 in the Bureau of Environmental Sciences. Jody currently leads the interdisciplinary team coordinating hydrilla treatments and native vegetation planting in Lake Apopka. These projects require very deliberative coordination among multiple agencies as well as the public, and for her success on these projects, Jody was recently recognized as February Employee of the Month. Jody is also a leader of district springs monitoring efforts and directs data collection and management while representing the district in meetings with the Wekiva Wild and Scenic River System Committee and the Santa Fe Springs Protection Forum. Jody is exemplary at meeting objectives and deadlines for her projects. Thank you, Jody, for 15 years of dedicated service to the district. A 20-year service award for Ryan Spahn, Technical Program Coordinator in the Division of Regulatory Services. Ryan is an excellent, well-rounded biologist who has a very broad knowledge of ecology with a focus on Florida's natural systems. Ryan manages the FDOT mitigation program and assists with the review and enforcement of mitigation bank permits. He has authored standard operating procedures that outlines each of these tasks the program is responsible for. He also manages an annual budget and oversees the search and acquisition of lands and the design, permitting, and construction of wetland mitigation sites. He is a well-respected among his peers, and he is an excellent communicator with program stakeholders. Thank you, Ryan, for 20 years of dedicated service to the district. A 20-year service award for Marlise Fillion, Information Technology Manager in the Office of Information Technology. Marlise manages the Information Technology Applications project portfolio. Marlise played a critical role in leading the E-Reg and E-Permit team, significantly contributing to the project's success. This success is evident in the district's transition to a paperless regulatory process, which has substantially reduced the time required to accept, review, and issue permits. Her latest project involved developing the contract information system, which enhances visibility into procurement processes and improves the efficiency of the procurement team. Marlise is recognized as a dedicated professional and exceptional leader. Thank you, Marlise, for 20 years of dedicated service to the district. A 25-year service award for Lori Berklut, Regional Water Supply Planning Coordinator in the Bureau of Water Supply Planning. Lori is the person leadership, staff, and stakeholders look to for guidance concerning North Florida's water resources. Her span of knowledge encompasses regulatory, MFL, and water supply planning and enables her to understand the issues and perspectives of the regulated community, environmental stakeholders, and the public. Her collaborative and positive approach have been pivotal in bringing together diverse agencies and stakeholders to develop solutions that protect our natural resources while meeting the region's full future water supply needs. Lori partnered with Swanee River Water Management District to lead the update to the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan and is helping to lead the development of a recovery strategy for the lower Santa Fe and Itchituckney rivers. Congratulations on 25 years of service to the district. A 25-year service award for Robert McCoy, Chemist 2 in the Bureau of Water Resource Information. Rob is an integral member of the lab's analytical team. He performs analysis of water samples, statistical analysis, and data management. This past year, Rob analyzed approximately 8,300 total organic carbon samples, reporting over 98% of them without a qualifier. During the same time, he prepped approximately 8,500 total phosphorus, total nitrogen samples. Rob is part of the sample check-in team, arriving early so that when his team members have samples checked in, and ready to go when they arrive at work. Rob was Employee of the Month in 2020. Thank you, Rob, for your dedicated service to the district. And our final award is rather special. It is a 25-year service award for Mary Ellen Winkler, our Assistant Executive Director. After graduating from the University of Florida College of Law with high honors and a brief stint in private practice, Mary Ellen joined the district as an Assistant General Counsel 1. During her time in the Office of General Counsel, Mary Ellen's primary practice areas were consumptive use and environmental resource permitting, minimum flows and levels, prevention and recovery strategies, and water supply planning. She has provided invaluable guidance in the development of agency rules and represented the district before the Division of Administrative Hearings in permitting, enforcement, and rulemaking matters. Her work was critical in the successful development and ratification of the Central Florida Water Initiative rules that govern the consumptive use of water in the CFWI area of the St. Johns, Southwest, and South Florida Water Management Districts. Mary Ellen developed a reputation of being one of the premier water lawyers in the state, with exceptional knowledge of rule and law and the ability to strategically manage complex cases. Because of her exceptional talent and work ethic, she continued to excel and to progress through the ranks, taking on more complex and significant matters, leading her to the appointment of the District General Counsel in 2020. In 2022, Mary Ellen was appointed as Assistant Executive Director, where she has served the agency with an unwavering commitment to the protection of our water resources and staff as a servant leader. Mary Ellen, congratulations on 25 years of service to the district, and thank you for your continued leadership. Thank you.
Wow. We are so blessed to have the benefit of the talents and all the things that you bring to the table, all of you in our district. So thank you very much for your service to the people of the state of Florida and to our region and this district. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, as they're
Yes.
clearing out back in September, it was the year of our Lord 2024, and you had a board member that challenged you to the UCF versus UF game.
That did occur.
There's also a board member in the sky that's a female version also. And we were both being very belligerent, and you made one mistake, sir. Just so you know, if in fact you would have won the bet, you would have had the national championship party favor belt that holds 2 beer cans that you put around yourself, and this would have been your victory. But no, you don't get this. No.
I don't.
And this is what a UCF tag looks like, but unfortunately, I had to change because I've lost. This is my Gator lanyard. On top of that, hold on, sir. We've got Gator to
Oh my goodness!
If you can't see, he has got some of the loudest orange and blue tennis shoes on, and he's appropriately demonstrating his love of our of our flagship university, the University of Florida. Thank you.
I will say, I did have to learn we are the boys from old Florida, down where the old Gators play in all kinds of weather.
Right.
We all stick together for FLORIDA.
Amen.
So, go
Well,
Gators.
I
But
always
you did
admire.
miss out,
Yeah,
big time.
I always admire people who live up to their obligations on bets. That's something that speaks to your character, sir.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
You're welcome. But next year, maybe you'll get the honor of a wonderful
Right.
belt.
Well, if there's we play USF next year, so if there's any Bulls on we can start that right now.
Wait 1 second, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. I haven't heard my fellow knight that says charge on say anything.
I was actually whispering, "Good night, Charge on."
That was our vice chairman saying charge on, except for one day in Gainesville. No, it was a good game. Thank you. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
That was great. All right, let's go to item 2, our hydrologic conditions report. Mr. Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Bradley and members of the Governing Board. I'm Tim Miller, Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Water Resource Information, presenting the November Hydrologic Conditions Report representing data from the month of October. I want to mention that at the end of the report, I'll also present hydrologic information specific to Hurricanes Helene and Milton, and you'll receive an update on storm impacts and response from our emergency coordination officers, Chris Kinslow and Greg Rawson. Rainfall in October exceeded the district-wide monthly average by 4.4 inches. Hurricane Milton was the primary contributor as a significant rainfall event, especially through the central portions of the district. 15 of 18 counties received more than their monthly average. Lake, Seminole, Volusia, and Flagler counties each received more than 11 inches of rain through the month, which is 8 or more inches above their averages. The 3 counties that were below normal include Baker, Nassau, and Duval counties. County-wide rainfall totals range from a high of 15.37 inches for Volusia County to a low of 1.74 inches for Baker County. Moving to rainfall over the past 12 months, the district-wide annual rainfall total is now 10.2 inches above the annual average. Northern and central counties, along with some inland areas to the south, have been the primary recipients, resulting in 9 counties that have received more than 60 inches in total annual rainfall. All but one of our counties are above their 12-month average. 8 counties are 10 or more inches above normal, with both Nassau and Volusia counties having received more than 17 inches above their annual average. Only Okeechobee County is below its 12-month average. Countywide totals range from the lowest value of 47.32 inches for Okeechobee County to the highest value of 68.71 inches for Nassau County. Surface flows across the district at the start of October were in the average range, and the majority have increased. High flow conditions are observed at both southern and northern locations, with very high flows observed in the Middle and Ocklawaha River basins. In the next series of slides, we'll review the status of water levels at selected long-term lake sites. At Lake Brooklyn, water level increased 0.8 of a foot, setting a new 25-year high. Lake Weir's level rose 0.4 of a foot, placing it at the average water level for October. Water level at Lake Winnimisset had an increase of 2.1 feet from last month, exceeding the maximum water level observed during the period of record for October. You'll note this site stopped reporting, and that was due to Milton. As a solution, staff installed the temporary equipment to bridge data gaps until the site can be accessed for repairs to telemetry. Lake Apopka's level had an increase of 0.8 of a foot through the month and is now at regulation schedule. Water level in Blue Cypress Lake increased 0.7 of a foot, moving above the average water level, but meeting the regulation schedule at the end of the month. Conditions in the upper Floridan aquifer continued to show a strong increasing trend in October. This places the majority of the district in the high range, and in fact, 4 wells exceeded their historic water level maximums this month. Overall, aquifer conditions are healthy, and changes remain on trend with recent hydrologic conditions. Next, we look at the district-wide index value for aquifer conditions. The upper Floridan aquifer well index value at the end of October was 91, which is in the high range and a continuation of an increasing trend. This support and recharge of the aquifer is a benefit as we go into the typically drier winter and spring months, but doesn't diminish the importance of encouraging continued water conservation practices. In the next series of slides, I review changes in flow at selected spring sites with long-term monitoring. At several of the spring sites, you'll note a dip in flow following Hurricane Milton. This shows a backwater effect that can happen as fast-rising river waters can impede spring flows until river levels subside or spring flows increase in response to rising groundwater availability. And you'll see that in this first example at Silver Springs. And the monthly mean for flow in Silver Springs was an increase of 61 cubic feet per second from the previous monthly mean, and flow is in the high range. At Blue Spring, the monthly mean showed an increase of 1 cubic feet per second in October, and flow is in the high range. At Rock Springs, flow increased 4 cubic feet per second from the previous monthly mean. These provisional data indicate record flow was observed during the month before dropping into the high range. An increase of 6 cubic feet per second was observed in the overall monthly mean at Wekiwa Springs, and flow is near the top of the high range. In spite of delays caused by Hurricane Milton, the well plugging program continued to be productive. 17 wells were plugged, which provided an additional savings of over 0.85 million gallons per day and brings the total water saved by this program since November 2020 to 73.3 million gallons per day. It's always good to celebrate achievements, and last month, at the close of our 2024 fiscal year, a 35-year-old record was broken. In 1989, 192 wells were abandoned, and that number stood until this last fiscal year when the number of abandonments in a single year reached a new height, 213 wells. Coupled with that milestone, 26.77 million gallons per day were saved this last fiscal year. This achievement involved multiple internal groups coordinating and working together, and also reflects successful partnership with contractors who have been responsive and proficient. Staff spent a significant amount of time in the field, traveling and often overcoming challenges as each well presented unique circumstances. It's my privilege to recognize key staff, starting with the team in Water Resource Information, our Geosciences group, which is led by Rob Brooks. Gary Foster is the program manager for the well plugging program, and our hydro techs include John Lombardi, Jacob Williams, and Jordan Norton. And from regulatory staff from Apopka, Jacksonville, and Palm Bay, we have Isaac Crenshaw, Mike Turner, and Garrett Rashall. And we also want to include the Office of General Counsel, where Barbara Johnson was a help as well. I'd like to thank these staff for their individual efforts and teamwork, and also for the board for continued support of this important program. That concludes the monthly portion of the hydrologic conditions report, but before we move on to discuss the hurricanes, I can pause to ask if you might have any questions.
Yes, sir.
Can you go to slide 11? You went past it.
Oh, sorry.
11.
Oh,
there you go. I don't think, as long as I've been sitting here, I've never seen an all blue situation, almost 90% blue as far as the upper fluoridating aquifer is concerned. I've never seen that. We have been in such a wet cycle in the peninsula of Florida for a long time, and this really is the wettest of the wet. It's wet in the south part where I'm at, and that just, to me, is the most blue I've ever seen in any graphic in the last 20 years. So, and then a comment on the springs. Wekiwa Island on the Wekiwa River, the lady that owns it and runs it, her name's Mary. She's been sending me pictures of how far underwater her docks are, and how far it's running up into her property, and has been for really the end of the summer. They've had to cease operations and cancel all their bookings because it's just untenable. And I go to Wekiwa, the river. I try to go every month to do Rock Springs and the Wekiwa Springs run. It's a heck of a good workout, by the way. Going against that current, it's a hard workout, but I've never ever seen it. And going back 20 years of doing it once a month, I've never seen it this wet, this long. So this peninsula is saturated. We could actually use a good drying out. I know my industry needs it. And so anyway, just a case in point that we're very wet and have been wet and continue to be wet, and we could use a break. So.
Talk to the big man.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, sure. As we move on to discuss the recent hurricane events, I'll ask Chris Kinslow and Greg Rawson to join me after these first slides, which help communicate the hydrologic impacts of the storms. In late September, Major Hurricane Helene rapidly moved northward from the Gulf into Florida and the southeastern United States. It remained west of district boundaries, but due to its size, impact from wind was a primary concern, which Chris will talk about shortly. Rainfall amounts varied, but few areas received more than 2 inches of rain, and you can see that overall Helene was not a significant rain event for the district. This was fortunate, as September was a wet month, and October brought Hurricane Milton, which we look at next. As you know, Hurricane Milton was a significant storm event, and I'll provide updates on the hydrologic conditions, such as rainfall, flooding, current water levels, and flood mitigation, including a focus on the central portion of the district where impacts have been especially severe. Seen here are color infrared satellite imagery of part of the Middle Basin. I chose this imagery because it makes water more distinguishable in the landscape. On the left is imagery from May this year. You can see a well-defined river channel between Lakes Harney and Monroe, and some wetlands along the main stem of the river south of Lake Harney. In contrast is the image on the right from October 14th, shortly after Milton. This illustrates how dynamic water levels are, with a huge amount of inundation along the floodplain south of Lake Harney, including the Seminole Ranch Conservation Area, a district property, which you'll get to see video of in Greg's report. This stretches towards the Titusville and Mims areas. You'll note much flooding around the main channel between Lake Harney and Monroe, as well as around the lakes themselves. Considering the substantial flood impacts from Milton, it's important to show data from before, during, and after the storm. Even with minimal rain impacts from Helene, the previous month of September had high rainfall amounts. As an example, Astor was in moderate flood stage in mid-September, dropping to near action stage at the start of October. The map on the left illustrates rainfall in the first week of October. Many of the areas that received ample rain in that week were then the recipients of extreme amounts from Milton, which you see in the center map, which added significantly more water to saturated soils and elevated water levels along the river and floodplain. Fortunately, the conditions following Milton delivered very little rainfall for the remainder of the month, as you can see on the image on the right. Let's take a closer look at the area in our district with some of the highest rainfall totals we experienced during the storm. The image on to the right has the added context of our strategic planning basins, which broadly illustrate our drainage basins. Extremely high rain coincided with 3 of the planning basins, the Indian River and Upper St. Johns River basins, and the Middle and Lower St. Johns River basins, with impacts to all. This map helps to understand that the extent of drainage basins and the movement of water through them caused many locations to experience rising waters for days after the storm was gone, especially in the Middle Basin from Lake Harney north to Astor and then on into the Lower Basin. When an event like this occurs, we rely on web tools maintained by the National Weather Service to monitor current as well as forecasted flood status. These tools utilize monitoring data collected by USGS, which we co-fund to help make these critical tools possible. What you see here are examples of what the information looks like at 2 locations where we saw record flooding from Milton. These hydrographs show water levels at Deep Creek and the St. Johns River at Astor sites, before and after the storm, and forecast information for the Astor location. Also illustrated here are the differences in flood duration between locations. Flooding at Deep Creek rose at a similar rate to Astor, cresting near the same time but falling below minor flood stage in less than 10 days, and it's currently below action stage, while flooding at Astor has persisted, exhibiting a slow decline as it has received waters from upstream and inputs from surrounding drainage basins. Astor is currently at the low end of moderate flood stage. To put the recession of floodwaters in a historical context at the Astor site, this slide illustrates the flood attenuation after Milton compared to other tropical systems since 2000. As mentioned on the last slide, record water levels from Milton eclipsed the peak set by Ian in 2022. The rate at which floodwaters received at this site has shown variability through the years, but is currently receding at a higher rate than it did after Ian. As another example of attenuation after Milton, this is data from the USGS St. Johns River at Sanford location, located just downstream from Lake Monroe. And while Ian's peak was higher, as you see in blue at the top of the graph, current recession rates are similar. The path of Milton was similar to Hurricane Ian, which hit Florida in late September 22. Both storms traversed from east to west along the north portion of the upper basin. Both brought extreme rainfall and winds on the north side of the storms, and that induced reverse flows, increasing flooding impacts from the rainfall. Milton's track and the location of the storm once off the coast, as you can see in the video of the storm winds to the top right, produced strong northeast winds from the mouth of the river southward along much of its length. This pushed the river's water upstream in a reverse direction, and you can see the extent of wind-induced flow reversal to the south, including at Lake Harney and further south at the St. Johns River near Cocoa site. We partner with USGS for discharge data at these sites and others. Buffalo Bluff, which is shown in red on the graph, is a lower St. Johns River site that has pronounced tidal variation, and that enables us to clearly see when flow is reversed by the high winds coming upriver, overriding multiple tide cycles, exacerbating the flooding from the enormous amount of rainfall the Middle Basin had received. Finally, this slide illustrates the importance of the role of floodplains as natural areas that store floodwaters during large events. The image on the right includes inundation data, a product of ISI provided through FEMA. This shows water depths shortly after Milton in the context of a district property, our River Lakes Conservation Area, along with lands identified as critical wetlands. This demonstrates how well the floodplain of the conservation area performs in its role of flood protection and highlights the benefit of continued acquisition of flood mitigation areas through the district's land acquisition program. In total, the district owns over 344,000 acres of land that FEMA considers to be within the 100-year floodplain. And with that, I'll pass this over to Chris and Greg, who I'd like to mention did a fantastic job as the coordinating emergency officers.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Chris Kinslow. I'm a Bureau of Land Resources Land Resource Specialist and also the district's emergency coordinating officer. I'd like to thank Tim for providing all that information, and it was always great to work with. I'd also like to acknowledge that we as a district are extremely lucky. District facilities and lands were largely spared and sustained mostly minor damages for following both events that we'll be discussing today. We understand that families and businesses within and outside our district suffered much more serious damage, and our thoughts are with them during these ongoing recovery efforts. With that in mind, I will be presenting on the impacts and response to Hurricane Helene on the district. As Tim stated, most of the impacts were to the Ocklawaha and lower basins, and mostly were winds as opposed to heavy rains like we felt during Debbie. Also a very similar track to Debbie that we had earlier this year. And flooding impacts were not significant. In fact, the direction that Helene came pushed water out of the river. A total of 61 damage reports were recorded on district lands for Hurricane Helene, most looking like this. Most district properties were reopened to the public, as well as our navigational locks within 36 hours after landfall. And this would not have been possible without the efforts of district staff, particularly those from the Bureau of Land Resources and the Bureau of Operations and Maintenance. In addition, we coordinated with the State Emergency Operations Center to provide mutual aid assistance to Swanee River Water Management District in the form of 2 cut and toss teams to aid in clearing their properties, which received 2 direct hits this year. They began work on October 28th and just finished just this last Friday. That was greatly appreciated by the folks at Swanee River, and our staff from Bureau of Land Resources and Maintenance, as well as Operations and Maintenance, did a great job. They were originally scheduled to begin work in early October, but Hurricane Milton got in the way. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg Rawson, who was the incident commander and acting emergency coordinating officer during Milton. And we'll take questions at the end for both incidents.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Greg Rawson.
the risk management coordinator here at the district, and I was the acting emergency coordinating officer during Hurricane Milton. As you can see from the coverage area map on the right, Hurricane Milton had impacts across our entire district. Significant effects were felt along the Ocklawaha and St. Johns River basins. Areas such as Astor, DeLand, and Sanford received over 10 inches of rainfall, causing extended moderate to major flooding, surpassing record levels at Astor and Deep Creek, which you saw in Tim's presentation hydrographs, as well as other areas throughout the district which experienced isolated flooding. Astor is currently in moderate flood stage, forecast to downgrade to minor within the week, with Sanford and Harney now in or nearing action stage, and all continuing to trend downward. You see in this video just the extent of that flooding at Deep Creek. Non-structural flood protection via the district's managed conservation areas played a key role during Hurricane Milton, just as it did during Hurricanes Ian and Nicole. These areas help retain floodwaters and minimize damage to surrounding communities by providing a place for water to go and spread out over landscape. The video shows the district's managed Seminole Ranch Conservation Area. The before images depict normal water levels, while the after video was taken on October 18th, more than a week after Hurricane Milton passed. You can see the 6 palms at the St. Johns River boat ramp at the end of Hattville Road as a visual reference in this video. Our staff immediately began assessing damages and initiating recovery efforts following the storm's passing, and have since recorded 389 damage reports. Most district properties and navigational locks were reopened to public recreation within 72 hours of the landfall, with additional reopenings occurring as properties were confirmed safe. An extended closure at Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive remains in effect until water levels recede and roadway assessments and any necessary repairs can be completed. Chris and I would like to extend our thanks to all district employees for their contributions in responding to these recent events, especially those who provided support in the field, record keeping, and in the district EOC. This concludes our remarks, and we'd be happy at this time to take any questions.
All right, any questions regarding the district's hurricane impacts and hurricane response?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you're recognized, Mr. House.
I had a epiphany. I was flying from maybe West Palm to Gainesville, and in doing so, you can actually see all these properties underwater. And then my epiphany was, we're in the business to buy properties, and those properties we're trying to buy, everybody wants the most money they can, but then we're buying swampland in some respects too. So I called Mike when we landed, and I said, hey, maybe what we should consider doing after a big storm event and figure out the time of concentration, we should fly all these areas, because we have a wetland list that we should buy Florida qualities and sort of use that as a reference for later on in life when we're trying to buy some of these properties. Because I mean, we have too many properties and not enough money, and certain property, we need all these holes in the donuts, but at the same time, if the holes in the donut are 3 foot underwater during a storm event, they're not worth as much money. So that may be a negotiation technique. So in some respects, wearing my water management district hat, if we spent money for aerial reconnaissance after a storm, we could use that for what values later on we're trying to negotiate a property. And so I thought, we don't have that in a budget right now. We give money to USGS and everybody flies stuff, but we sort of are using Google Earth. So I think maybe we should consider some sort of allowance for something like that. Plus, it's good information for us in general. If there is possibly a pipe that's clogged or a pipe that's too big, you could turn it to other agencies, and maybe you could, as part of mitigation, you could say, DOT, when you need to buy credits, maybe you need to do this as part of your credits. And there's just some ways we could fund that, but I think it's just one person's idea, but it could save us some money later on.
Well, that's excellent. Much appreciated. You alluded to a discussion we're going to have later on, which is the list of critical wetlands. And that, what you're describing, sort of dovetails into that, but adding to the information that's available to strengthen our position, as well as give us better information, right? Yes. Thank you.
That's from a UCF night also, Chairman.
Yes. That's,
Oh, there you go.
it's pretty impressive for night.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Did someone else have a question or comment? Yes.
I have some- and kind of-
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Yes.
Pertinent to that discussion. Tim, hold on. You go the other. Okay. Tim actually presented some information using ICI, which is it's elevation derived. ICI, yeah. Right here. So this has water height. So height of water above above surface. So
At any given time.
yeah, this is particularly particularly for the flood event. So it uses the flood inundation mapping paired with elevation to determine the depth of flood. So here's one of those critical wetlands that the properties that are on the list, showing how much and how high. So that's orange is greater than 6 feet. So more than half of that is over that. So what you're alluding to, Mr. House, is some of it's already kind of desktoped, but it can be ground truth more. So the tools are getting better. And this is pretty new, experimental. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So excuse me. So the ISI information is produced by a company, and right now FEMA is contracted with them, and the Florida Department of Emergency Management is looking into a contract with these folks. But basically, they deal with natural disasters. They use a special type of radar that can see through clouds at night, smoke, wind, rain, all of that, and is able to discern, in this case, inundation data. But it can also be used for fires, things like that out west, disasters, natural disasters. So this is a product that's kind of coming out, and we were able to see some of these data to be able to present. And so they looked at certain areas along the river since we've had a flood occur. And so that's kind of where this stands right now. It's not a product that we totally have in-house yet, but it's definitely a tool that could be used to, as you said, Mr. House, to kind of identify areas that take on these kind of floodwaters during large events like this.
Mr. Register, directing us.
Yes, I just wanted to mention after that what I considered an incredible idea from a Golden Knight suggestion. I did ask staff to look into what data sources are out there, what is the availability of it to get that information. So we're continuing to evaluate that and continuing to evaluate whether that or flyovers or what would be the most efficient, economical way to get that information, because I think it is going to be real valuable information, not only on shaping what our critical wetlands list may look like, but also when it comes time to buy it, being able to show those inundation periods.
Charge on.
Charge on.
There you go. The only thing I'm thinking, this is good information for technical people, and this is right. I'm sure it is. But that their rancher you're trying to talk to, or really it's usually the rancher's grandchildren that you're trying to talk to, because usually granddaddy doesn't want to sell and then finally passes. And that's what happens a lot of time. And Doug would know this more than me, but I think pictures is better than infrared images.
Or the drone video that.
Exactly.
I mean, the before and after is always amazing. And that, you know,
this is
we've been talking about this for a long time as a board about how we need to be aggressive on using, you know, while the make hay while the sun shines, as they say, while we have some funds that the legislature wants to expend and has now opened the spigot for a few years now. We got to get these places to put water. As you know, we're going to have all these people coming, and there's got to be places for the water to go. All right. Okay. Any further questions for Mr. Miller or that team? Okay, we're going to move to item 3, which is our significant consent agenda. We have items 13 through 28 on the consent agenda. Does any board member wish to pull any of those items? Is there a motion to approve the balance of the entirety of the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Second by a fellow knight.
All right, we have a motion and a second by the UCF contingent to approve the items 13 through 28, which is the entirety of the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Let's move to item 4, which is our very timely list of critical wetlands, which has turned out to be even a better, more useful tool than we even realized. And so it's given us a great starting point to do our job. You're recognized. Ms. Theus, how are you?
Well, thank you. Good morning, Chair Bradley.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Good morning, Chair Bradley, members of the Governing Board, Sheila Theus, Director of Real Estate Services. I will be presenting Agenda Item 4, an overview of this year's list of critical wetlands. Just a brief looking back, in 2022, the legislature directed the water management districts, in cooperation with our local government partners, to create a list of wetland properties that may be suitable for acquisition. The legislature requested that we evaluate the potential parcels based on 4 criteria: the ecological value of the wetland, the effect of water quality and flood mitigation, restoration value, and if the property is susceptible to development pressure. Staff began working on this year's list in June with our local government partners. Staff then met with internal staff, and they made recommendations later this summer. And then letters were sent to each individual property owner on September 12th. Over the last year, more than 6,000 acres identified on the district's list were acquired in both fee and less than fee acquisitions. The first table on the left captures the nearly 500 acres acquired by our district. The top 3 maps illustrate our top 3 acquisitions: 146 acres at Lake Washington, now part of the River Lakes Conservation Area; 161 acres at Lochloosa Lake with Alachua County, and now part of the Lochloosa Wildlife Conservation Area; and 100 acres along the St. Johns River, now part of Murphy's Creek Conservation Area. The second table recognizes our government partners' successes. Volusia County, working with the Board of Trustees, acquired 2,500 acres just north of the district's Turnbull Hammock Conservation Area. The district will manage this property as part of Turnbull Hammock. The Board of Trustees also secured a conservation easement over 2,700 acres in Okeechobee County, just west of the Fort Drum Conservation Area. And Orange County, through a 2021-22 budget commitment to double the amount of land held in conservation by 2030, acquired more than 260 acres from the district's list of critical wetlands. Moving into this year's list, we met with our local government partners and other stakeholders to review the list and learn their priorities. After consulting with staff in the Bureaus of Water Resources, Environmental Science, Regulatory Services, and Land Resources, all properties that remain on the current list will be retained, and an additional 40 new parcels have been identified. I'll quickly run through those now. Starting in Brevard County, 19 parcels have been added to the list. These parcels are located along the St. Johns River or have a direct wetland connection to the river. They include the parcels along the eastern shoreline of Lake Washington and several small parcels in our Canaveral Marshes area. The focus criteria here is water quality and flood mitigation. In Clay County, the county requested a few undeveloped tracts in the area where Black Creek meets the St. Johns River to be added for flood mitigation and increased development pressure. And also new this year in the county, requested some property in the southwest corner in the Melrose Santa Fe Lake area to be added to the list. In Northern Lake County, these 7 parcels were selected for flood mitigation and connecting conservation areas within the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And in Orange County, Areas on the west and east sides of the county were selected. On the west side at Lake Apopka, parcels along the southeast shoreline were selected. The primary criteria here is for water quality and wetland restoration value. And on the east side of the county, parcels adjacent to the Charles Bronson State Forest were selected for their ecological value and development pressure. These particular parcels are home to some fairly undisturbed cypress swamp. Finally, in Putnam County, 200 acres of forested wetlands along the St. Johns River at Lake George were chosen for water quality and flood mitigation. Staff requests approval of the fiscal year 2024-25 list of critical wetlands. This concludes the presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the list. Any further discussion? Any discussion or further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's approved unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Theus. Item 5, we have Mr. Coursey discussing a CUP nearby. You're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm Clay Coursey, the Director of Division of Water Supply Planning and Assessment. I have one consumptive use permit we're recommending for approval today, Certainteed. Certainteed manufactures drywall. A portion of the gypsum that's used in the manufacture of the drywall comes from the Seminole Electric facility directly to the south of their operation. This project is located in the lower St. Johns River Strategic Planning Basin on US 17 North and just about 6 miles away from here at our district headquarters in Palatka. This project being recommended for approval today is a renewal of an existing permit with a requested increase in allocation. That requested increase is due to an additional production line that's being added, and this new production line is actually substantially more efficient than the existing production line because they're using a heat exchanger to capture any evaporative losses and put those back into the process for producing the drywall. This facility in Palatka currently employs 150 people, and with the expansion will add 125 jobs to this facility. The requested increase in allocation is 0.412 million gallons per day, and the total allocation being requested is 0.86 million gallons per day. That concludes my presentation. The requested action on agenda item 5 is shown on the screen. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Any public comment? All right, we have no questions. We have no public comment. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. The motion was by Ms. Price, second by Mr. Atwood. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Item 6, Mr. Nailway is going to discuss items. Go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members. I'm Bob Nailway, Bureau Chief of the Bureau of District Projects and Construction, here today to request agenda item 6, which is approve of respondents to request for qualifications for owner's representative advisor for complex water resource and alternative water supply projects. So what are the services we are seeking in an owner's advisor or representative? This type of service is typically performed by a professional familiar with and an expert on the details of specific project, design, or construction activity. The advisor can represent the district in many capacities related to the project, ranging from project planning all the way to assisting the owner with managing the construction. I've listed here 3 specific tasks for which the district would likely use an advisor. The district will continue to use a separate design engineer for the individual projects, and the advisor will help manage and evaluate these designs. The 2 specific projects we solicited an owner's advisor for are Taylor Creek Reservoir improvements and the C10 water management area. Both of these projects include a high hazard dam, and using an outside advisor and a separate design engineer mitigates the district's risk associated with these high hazard dams. Pictured here are the S-164 structure and the L-73 Section 1 dam, both associated with the Taylor Creek Reservoir, and shown in the background is the actual reservoir now. These are the details of the solicitation. We advertised on September 11th, 2024 for an owner's advisor for the TCR and C10 projects. Today we're requesting the board to approve a 3-year contract for a not to exceed amount of $1.5 million. However, first year funding is only $500,000 and future funding will be determined with each year's budget approval. Pictured here is the S-164 structure again, and on the right is a map of the C10 improvements.
All right, you've heard an explanation of the item. Is there any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
No questions, but the way the Department of Transportation does this, every district has advisors, and in the DOT, we don't call them owners reps, we call them GECs, General Engineering Consultants, and it gives Mike a little more freedom because the way this is sort of written, it's sort of like it's coming out of these two accounts, but we're utilizing them for general engineering information and sort of value engineering different project exposures. So I think it's a really good idea because sometimes you need that because our in-house staff is overloaded. And I think it would sound better if you said this was general engineering consultants instead of just an owner's rep, because that's sort of the way the state would see this, because like our little number is $1.5 million, the DOTs would be $100 million, for district, etc. So it's sort of a different number, but I think it's the same nomenclature. And I think it's important that we need this. And a lot of times they'll actually have a stable of 3 different consultants because somebody has a different flavor than another flavor for different types of projects. But I'm in favor of this specific project, and this Black & Veatch is a good firm, no problem at all with that. I just think our terminology at some point might confuse the word, because when you say owner's rep, what are you having them do? Because you really can't get rid of the owner's rep portion. You're really asking these guys to help you consult and do more work. So I would consider at some point talking to our staff and saying, hey, staff, let's fall in line a little bit more with the DOT and call them general engineering consultants. And then that gives Mike and his staff freedom to use them. You'll have to keep track of tasks and all that stuff, but the consultants are really good at that because that's the way they work for the literally hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that DOT spends.
Well, do you have a proposed motion here?
Yes.
All right.
I can. Mr. Chairman, may I add to that?
Of course, you're recognized.
I think owner's rep is when it's a contracting. So with contractors, the general consultant becomes owner's rep. So owner's rep is a sub to general consultant. So FII. So what I'm just saying, what my colleague said is true, but owner's rep comes to play with dealing with contractors. Otherwise, consultant to consultant is a GC to GC.
Okay, thank you. Mr. House, do you want to comment on the Vice Chairman's
I think
perspective?
What she's saying as an owner's representative a lot of times deals specifically with a contractor or a project manager. I think the way they're utilizing these people is more as a general consultant to work with that. But really, it is a very significant amount of money, $1.5 million. But in the scheme of everything, it's an insignificant amount of money, and Mike does need the help. So the conversation is, I just don't want to tie his hands down if he needs general engineering consultants, or maybe they want to do this one and come back in with a general engineering consultant bid at a later time. I just think that it would be more,
right.
The terminology is a little bigger, but it's really, I don't want to get in the day-to-day operation of the district. I'm just trying to make things sort of modern. Right. So really it's a Mike question almost.
That's what I was saying, that Ron is correct. This one is a general consulting, and owner's rep come to play when it's a contractor that you're dealing. So the owner's rep will represent water management and when you are building a project. But this is more of a consultant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Mr. Registrar, do you have any comments on that discussion?
Yes, I appreciate Mr. House and Ms. Giabi White's insights on that. I think in this instance, we do have some very specific tasks that we're looking for them to help us with the Taylor Creek Reservoir and the other significant water supply project down there, and so the C10 Reservoir. And so I think us dipping our toes in the water with this one would be good to continue forward, but looking at the future, whether or not something more like a GEC could give us a wider availability of help on a wider variety of things would be a good direction to look into. So my recommendation would be to go with what we have here, knowing that we might look at this other avenue for future and then think about the terminology that we're using.
Let's do two things. Could you back up the the list of the contractors
Consultants.
or the consultants. I'm sorry.
You
The
want
list
your
that we're
scoring
voting on.
matrix. Your
There
scoring
it is.
matrix.
Okay. Everybody sees the list we're considering, correct? I didn't want to skip through that because that's sort of and I wanted the public to see it. All right, let's go to the motion. Let's just, after the word advisor, say or whatever appropriate title in the staff's discretion to meet what we're looking for. We'll add that to that motion. That is before us. What I just said. Is there a motion to approve? Okay. Is there? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you. Let's go to item 7. Ms. Wright, we're going to look at our work plan. And you are recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Amy Wright, and I'm Supervising Professional Engineer in the Bureau of Operations and Maintenance. My item for your consideration today is approval of my Bureau's fiscal year 24-25 work plan. This is a list of the 15 projects that are in the O&M budget for our work plan this year. These are typical projects that we would complete in our work plan every year, including levee repairs, levee capping, canal clearing, pump station upgrades, and replacement and repair of walkways and bridges. In addition, we have a few other types of projects like underwater structure inspections, purchase of alum tanks, and sealing the Tom Lawton.
All right. We got the list in front of us. Are there any questions on any of the items on the list? Anyone? All right. Is there a motion to approve? We have a motion to approve the list by Mr. Bornick. Is there a second? We have a second by Mr. Atwood. Is there any further discussion on our work plan? I wanted to give everybody a sense of, and the taxpayers a sense of how we're spending money to maintain during the next fiscal year with the budget that we just approved at our previous meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Here.
Projects that were on the second slide, I just want to make sure we mention those. Those are projects that we're coordinating the construction phase for 4 projects that are in the bureau, in the budgets for other district bureaus. 3 are for the Bureau of Environmental Sciences, and 1 project is for the Bureau of District Projects and Construction. I just wanted to make you all aware that there were 4 additional projects.
Yeah, we saw that in our packet, and I appreciate you letting the public see that as well. I should have done that second slide as well, but we're trying to move things along quickly. Is there any other projects?
No, those are the list of projects. I was going to describe them, but if you're content with the list and having reviewed your packets, that's fine.
We are content with the list. We have approved the motion. We have reviewed the projects. Now the public sees those last 4 as well. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move to item 8, which is an important presentation. I think everybody is wanting to I've heard from board members about wanting to get a status on these two. There are two major big projects. So we're going to take a little time with this one. We're spending a lot of money here, and we want everybody to know where we are. All right? All right, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Dale Jenkins, Director, Division of Infrastructure and Land Resources. It's my privilege to present to you the monthly update for our two largest water resource development projects, Black Creek and M1 Canal Flow Restoration. This photo, the aerial, the drone photo on the left is a photograph of the treatment system for Black Creek. You can see all 6 cells have been constructed, and there's a triangular rinse basin also. I'm going to start my presentation today on Crane Creek, so it's good to start with that photograph on the right. This was shot towards the end of October, and it's the weir location. If you look in the background, you'll see that the north side of that weir is completely constructed. Below the water level, right there, the north weir is in place below the water. If you can see this sheet pile right down the middle of the canal, that separates the north from the south. So you can see on the south side, we're just getting started. It's moving along. This is one of 3 concrete pours for that south side footer, or south side weir, I'm sorry, which is being fabricated right now and should be on site sometime in the end of November. So you can see there's still a lot of excavation that needs to be done on the south side. This location of the weir, the canal widens out to where we can get these 2 weir structures in place. So a lot of concrete work needs to be done yet on the south side, as well as a lot of excavation. So I just want to start off with that. And moving on to the program in general, to this project in general, I've already kind of touched on the operable weir. You can see we're at about 55% complete. So the north section is completely done. We're starting to work on the south section. And again, the weir that's being fabricated, that should be on site in November. All the excavation should be done, all the concrete should be poured, and this should be ready to go sometime, I think, by the end of December. We should be ready to have this mostly completed. Moving west, the east pump station, that's about 75% complete. This photograph right down here shows the concrete driveway being poured. That's now complete. Really, this is coming along quite nicely. There's now power to the site. What remains are a few items, including installation of the 3 40 horsepower pumps that will go in the wet well. Continuing to the west, we have 2 horizontal directional drills. They're both done. One runs from this east pump station to the stormwater treatment area, and the other one goes from the west pump station to the discharge area. So just talking a little bit about that stormwater treatment area, it's about 95% done. Now, the only thing that really remains is sodding of the side slopes. As you know, the stormwater treatment area is where the nutrients will be reduced prior to going further to the west and eventually discharged. As far as the photograph of that area right here, I wanted to point this out. This is where this pipe right here is where that horizontal directional drill terminates at the STA. And then these pipes right here, there's a discharge location on this end, and this end, that water then discharges there and goes into the stormwater treatment area. So that area is now all done. This is all backfilled with some riprap, coming along very nicely. As you can see now, the west pump station is also proceeding quite nicely. The wet well is in place, but some other work needs to be done. The intake structures have been installed and backfilled and compacted, and the access driveway will be poured later this month. Moving on to the discharge stormwater structure, that also is coming along very nicely. It's 90% complete. The only thing we really have to do there, and this is along US 192, where the nutrient reduced water eventually pours out into district-owned property and weaves its way to the St. Johns River. The only thing that really needs to be done right there, we're coordinating with DOT on an access driveway off of US 192 into the discharge stormwater structures before they get discharged. Overall, the project's at about 70% completion. We expect this project to be done sometime in early to late spring. We did have a little bit of a delay here due to Hurricane Milton. When I was talking about the operable weir location earlier, you could see that there was we still have to do a lot of earth excavation on the south side. Well, when Milton came through and those water levels rose in the canals, they washed a lot of that sediment into the canal, and it settled out along the north side of that particular weir location. So the contractor still needs to excavate all that sediment out of there. That hasn't happened yet. And when it does, that'll set us back about a month, but the whole project is still on schedule for completion sometime in April or May of 2025. So it's coming along quite nicely. Moving along to Black Creek.
All right. Any questions on the first project? All right. We're moving on to Black Creek. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to Black Creek, you can see that the pump station and intake, they're just waiting for water. I mean, they're pretty much completely done. There's a couple punch list items. You can see all the fencing up here in the upper right photograph, all the fencing's up around the pump house and electrical building, intake structure ready to go. The pipeline, I got great news on the pipeline. The whole 17 miles of pipeline is done. There's a couple other things that need to be taken care of. For example, it still needs to be pressure tested. So while the 17 miles of pipeline is done, 11 miles of that pipeline still needs to be pressure tested to make sure it's not leaking. So that all that work should be done by mid-December, I believe. Let me just check. Yeah, by about mid-December. And then, of course, after that, there'll be some right-of-way restoration, but that's not going to keep the pipeline from being ready to take water at that point once all the pressure testing is complete. The treatment system construction is about 65% complete. Here's a nice picture down here in the bottom middle. You can see the sun rising out there, and our construction representative, Mike Petrucci, was out there bright and early, took a picture of some of the media going into cell number 1. That's happening right now. And you can see that, and so that's still on schedule also, about 65% complete. And finally, I just want to talk a little bit about the media production. This is where we're lagging on schedule right now. As you may recall, this is an innovative project, and the contractor, the media providing contractors, had a little bit of a problem with some issues. The primary one, which is residual moisture in the media. So that was kind of delaying processing of the media. So they hired a process engineer that came in and showed them some things they could do in the production facility to get the moisture out of the media. Now that's all been done. Now they're starting to get up to speed again, but it has delayed production of the media and overall schedule. We expect their cell 1 to be filled with media by December, January timeframe, at which point, as long as the creek is at the proper flows, we'll start pumping water out of Black Creek, running it through that media, rinsing it, and doing some water quality testing to make sure that the treated water is meeting water quality criteria for color and nutrients. And at that point, we can start actually putting water into Alligator Creek.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out, these are not newscasters we're burying. This is filtration mechanism. That's media also.
Right.
A little nicer to us.
That's fair. Fair point. Oh, that's good.
So we're hoping that sometime in the winter, January, February timeframe, we can actually start getting water into Alligator.
So it's looking like January, February, depending on the water quality testing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What would be the earliest if the first?
Well, I think the earliest would probably be late January.
Okay, great. Any questions? Excellent. Great update. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad we.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I think we need to drop the Dale's first name and have it changed to CD for Can Do Jenkins. I think everything he touches, he gets the job done. Through the years that I've been involved with Dale, you're always moving projects along efficiently and fast. And
right.
I grew up in South Florida with other issues down there, and it's just so nice that this district does things on time and in budget. It's really nice, and Dale is usually at the tip of the spear of that issue. So thank you, Dale.
Thank you, Mr. Bornick. But without the great staff and great leadership, I can't do.
Well, he's being modest. That's good. Thank you, Dale. Great work so far. Keep up the great work. And these are not, to follow up on Doug's point, these are not cookie cutter projects. These are there's an element of creativity and art in addition to the science to these projects, which add exponentially to the layers of difficulty in dealing with them. So that makes it all the more impressive.
Yes.
All right. So moving to item 9, our district's report of annual water use. Mr. Fitzgerald, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. I am John Fitzgerald, Bureau Chief for Water Supply Planning. Today I have a brief presentation regarding the district's 2023 report of annual water use. At around 1,049,000,000 gallons per day, total water use was 4% higher than 2022 use of 1,011,000,000 gallons per day. The largest use category in our district is public supply, which represents 60% of the total water use, followed by agricultural and commercial, industrial, institutional, and mining dewatering uses, which make up 18% and 8% of water use respectively. As shown by the orange line, rainfall was 54.41 inches in 2023 and was the 4th wettest year in the last decade. Rainfall in 2023 was 9.29 inches, higher than the 10-year low in 2016, and 2.888 inches, higher than the 10-year average of 51.65 inches. Although the total population in our district has seen a 24% increase over the last 10 years, from around 4.8 million people in 2014 to nearly 6 million people in 2023, water use has remained relatively stable overall, with a slight increase in recent years. Public supply water use during this same time period increased 21%, from around 519 million gallons a day to 626 million gallons a day, while gross per capita rates saw a 2% decrease from 126 to 123 gallons per person per day. The district's continued promotion of efficient use of reclaimed water and implementation of conservation has contributed to the trends we are seeing. As we continue to monitor water use and its relationship to groundwater availability and natural systems, it becomes clear that broadening the sources of water and ways to reduce consumption are valuable actions. Enhancement of the district's conservation efforts include promoting its district's Florida Water Star program, use of low-flow fixtures and appliances, landscaping with Florida native drought-tolerant species, the use of smart controllers to have more control over irrigation are all examples of what is currently and will continue to be done to more efficiently use the resource. Increased reclaimed water utilization for irrigation of landscapes and golf courses, along with use of alternative supplies, are options to meeting current and future demands. The 2023 story map of the report of annual water use is now available on our website, in addition to the historic reports dating back to 1978. Within the story map are links to raw data tables that stakeholders can access and download, as well as a compendium that provides a 20-year retrospective of water use along with methods and sources. The data and information contained in the report of annual water use has been and will continue to be used to support several of the district's programs. Water use data and population estimates are used in the consumptive use permit reviews and resource evaluations. Historic trends and averages are used in water supply planning and formulating future water demand projections. Per capita data are also used to help target potential water conservation projects and cost share opportunities. That concludes the presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
All right, there's the big picture. Any questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Atwood.
Sorry. Might be helpful if we had for the agricultural part of this. How many?
You go to the first slide.
How many acres are actually in production from year to year? Because that's going to change over the course of time. Give you an idea of what the true use is.
That's the wrong.
Yep. If that data is available easily, yeah.
Right. You're talking about the 18%.
Yeah, I was
say
looking
that.
for the,
say
for
that
the,
again.
So for the year to year, they were showing the 10 years and the changes from year to year.
Right.
I was just curious. I mean, you have the population increase, which helps public supply, right? It gives you an idea, like, okay, we're doing a good job. But how many agricultural acres are there in our district at this point? Because 10 years ago, there was probably a lot more, if I had to guess.
Interesting. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have that data, Chair, and we can provide that next time.
Is that in the report, or
it is
that
in the report?
It's in the report. All right. One, if you could send through Mike, send an email out with that data to the board. And Mr. Atwood, we can discuss it at the next meeting under comments, or if you would like to have it sounds like just one data points. We don't need a whole agenda item, but we'll send that out. And then if we want to do an agenda item, we can, because if it leads to other discussions. Does that sound good?
Great.
All right, great. Thank you. Any other comments on this?
Tying back into what he was saying.
Right.
On public supply, you know, the old engineering rule of thumb was the average house did 300 gallons per day of water and 250 gallons a day of sewerage. That was just the standard. So 50 gallons a day went to irrigation or watering your cars or something else. And so it would be interesting if there's a public supply number. Obviously, we're taking that much water out, but some of that water may be going for municipal golf courses because they don't have reuse or things like that. So there's probably a percentage that's not being dranken versus being used, and there's a loss number there. That may be something interesting to learn also, because
the golf course is under public supply, as long as they don't use reuse, right?
As long as they don't, they could have their own.
Oh, that's true. They could have their own
for landscape recreational.
That's true. There could. I mean, there's different.
Some of them get it from
variations. That's a good point. Good point.
Sometimes people around their house, if they have a well, they have
Yeah,
rusty water, so they'll use city water around their house so they don't stain their house, and they'll use their well water in their yard.
Right.
So there's different losses. So if you use the same old adage of 300 versus 250, 1/6 of this public supply water is being used that goes back in the ground, not through sewerage, in essence, in some respects. So I'm just sort of, I assume the public supply number is all those city and municipality wells and how much they're flowing, versus this is all the permitted amount of water use consumption we have.
Public supply represents all the different use categories that they would supply, like a commercial, industrial, residential, everything that they're supplying for that.
So like a lot of times, like in Doug's world, we
And it's actual use.
This is actual use, yeah.
Right. Because in Doug's world, citrus growers actually put a lot in for freeze protection, but they don't use that much. So this is good.
In the agriculture irrigation self-supply use, the citrus example, that again is actual use.
This is all actual use, yes.
All of this, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
where I will say, we'll clarify where we have it. We do have to do some estimates on some of the smaller ones where we may not have.
Right. You have to. You don't have a meter on it.
Right. Yes, sir.
Understood.
It's great information.
It is, and this is sort of this is one of those building blocks of data that we have, which is why I thought it makes sense to put it on the agenda to talk about. You recognize, Doug?
Yeah. One is we're not using the Florida aquifer anymore because of greening. The TDS is too high, and it accelerates greening the disease. So we're just surface.
When you
water.
say we, you mean
it's all citrus.
Understood. I just for the benefit of the.
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
What is that? You used some initials. What was that initials you used?
Total dissolved solids, TDS.
Wasn't that saltwater intrusion, basically?
Exactly. As we grow, we're getting it further. That line is marching inland, unfortunately. And as the populations grow, it's going to continue to move on the East Coast west. So that's a problem. I've got a question. The power generation self-supply, that doesn't include Florida Power and Light and those companies, does it?
Yeah, it's just the water that's lost. So there's a lot of recirculation on a lot of those. So it's just that part of the water that would be evaporated that we estimate on that. So
There's I think I mentioned this at other meetings, but the water that's going to be consumed for data centers is going to go through the roof. Google has approached the biggest power companies in the world to see if they can capture the next 10 years of their power generation, and they said no. So Google's getting into the power generation, and they're going to need a lot of water for data centers and the energy that's going to be produced. It's the future mega growth thing on the planet is just that. So anyway, thank you.
Fascinating stuff. Important data. All right. Any further questions or discussion? All right. Next, we've got Mr. Register talking about strategic planning, sort of launching discussion of our new, there was a reorg, and here's sort of an update on what that reorg looks like in practice. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Good morning. As he mentioned, I am providing a strategic planning basin update for the lower St. Johns River Basin and the Ocklawaha River Basin. We also want to solicit input from you on the various strategic priorities that we've set within each of these basins to get your input. Also want to recognize over here with our strategic basin coordinators, Corey Hermley for the lower St. Johns River Basin and Jim Peterson for the Ocklawaha River Basin. They're the people that actually did all the work behind this effort. I just get to come up here and talk to y'all about it. Just as a refresher, and the chair kind of already went over this a little bit, a year ago, the district's reorganization, we developed the Basin Management Program. This program divided the district into 4 strategic planning basins, and this approach allowed the district to meet specific resource needs of each basin and to be more effectively and efficiently focused on our resources and efforts. You might remember this slide too from when we implemented that. This is basically what the basin coordinators behind me have been doing, working with all the staff, getting the research and science, the data and modeling, the stakeholder input, putting all that together so that we can develop this state of the resources and identify the needs and challenges within each of those basins. We want to use that to assist to develop projects and programs to address those challenges. The information that is produced that we get at the end of this process will be used to develop a basin plan, which will drive our work plans here at the district and be the basis for the district's strategic plan. Now, stakeholder engagement and buy-in is key in achieving success in this effort and really any effort. So far, the basin coordinators have actively engaged with our government partners and utilities, holding a series of introductory workshops in the spring of this year, as well as numerous one-on-one meetings. Now, after we get your feedback here today, the plan is to expand this outreach effort with additional stakeholder groups to collaboratively develop solutions for these basin priorities and ensure that our efforts are aligned with the needs and perspectives of those most affected. So here are our basin priorities. I know there's no shocking things up there: water supply, water quality, northern coastal basin, submerged aquatic vegetation, and we'll get to Deep Creek here in a minute. But you can see that these all kind of center around the core missions that we have here at the district. For water supply planning, our focus is continuing the work already underway, planning to meet future demands while protecting the water resources. The key elements of a sustainable, resilient water supply is conservation, the development of water resources to make the water pie bigger for everybody, and a diversified portfolio of potential alternative water supply sources, such as reclaimed water, to help stretch traditional freshwater supplies. And you can see the graphic on the right there, which shows the use of wastewater, whether it's actual beneficial use or whether it's just disposal. Actual beneficial use is in purple and disposal is in green, and the size of the dot kind of indicates is relative to the amount that's being produced. So you can see we've got a lot of areas that are doing really well, but it shows that we have a lot of opportunities to make better use of this water source as an alternative water supply. As you're well aware, one of the district's biggest projects, I'm going to talk about ongoing projects and initiatives right now, is the Black Creek Water Resource Development Project. When implemented, this will take care of all of the adopted MFLs within St. John's portion of the North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan. We also will continue to work on planning efforts with the Swanee River Water Management District. Through this North Florida Regional Water Supply Plan, the current version of the plan identifies over 160 million gallons a day of water conservation, water supply development, water resource development projects that are able to meet the 2045 projected demand while continuing to protect natural resources. Now, upcoming in projects and initiatives, one of the things going on, and I've mentioned this in some of my reports, the Swanee River Water Management District is working to develop updates for the Lower Santa Fe and Ichetucknee MFLs and the outstanding Florida Springs within those, and also develop MFLs for the Upper Middle Swanee River. And these MFLs, while they're in Swanee River Water Management District, the impacts from water use in our side are affecting these MFLs. So they're asking DEP to adopt them so that they'll be statewide. We're not really waiting on those to be adopted to go ahead and get started on stuff. We're working together with the North Florida Utilities Group, DEP, and Swanee River to do a feasibility study to look for projects to where we can address the impacts within our district with the supplies that we have. And these will also consider water conservation and alternative water supplies. It's estimated that as much as 60 to 83 million gallons a day could be shaved off of that through water conservation. Moving on to the next priority, water quality. While nitrogen and total phosphorus reduction goals have been met for both the freshwater and the marine sections of the lower St. Johns River, according to their TMDLs, there is still much work to be done here. Last year's status and trends report showed an uptick in nutrient levels. A few of the monitoring stations near the Tri-County agricultural area of the St. Johns, Putnam, and Flagler counties. At this time, the causes of these increases are unclear, but may include land use changes, altered rainfall patterns, and legacy internal loading. Therefore, continued data collection is one of the focus areas. Identification and analysis of these remaining loads remain a priority, and we're also investigating additional water quality improvement projects to address these loads. Ongoing projects and initiatives to do this. One you should be very familiar with, the Doctors Lake Enhanced Effluent Treatment Project that's been going on for a while now. Since it started operations, this project has removed more than 6,000 pounds of total phosphorus. We also have the Tri-County Agricultural Area Water Management Partnership, in which we collaborate with DEP, FDACS, and the agricultural producers to implement projects that both affect nutrient loading and also water conservation. To date, this partnership has funded 206 projects and invested $26 million in the TCAA. Also, regional stormwater treatment areas were constructed within the TCAA over a decade ago, and they continue to operate, reducing the amount of phosphorus, nitrogen, and suspended solids flowing to the St. Johns River from agricultural activity and roadway runoff. Some upcoming projects that are going on. One is also in Doctors Lake, and it's actually already started. It's the Doctors Lake Innovative Harmful Algal Bloom Management Project. DEP generously provided us with an innovative technology grant to fund a project for harmful algal bloom identification and treatment in Doctors Lake. With this project, floating sensors have been deployed in the lake to report real-time bloom conditions, collect routine water quality samples, and utilize an innovative remote sensing technology platform to basically detect and categorize harmful algal blooms. Upon this early detection, they can then receive treatment to hopefully keep them from growing in size. We also want to continue our work in the Tri-County Ag area with our cost share program, partnering again with the Department of Environmental Protection and FDACS, and also we're working with FDACS and producers to identify the potential for regional projects focused on improving water quality by mitigating nutrient loading from these ag operations. And finally, DEP has also, again, come to our aid with money and provided funding to undertake a feasibility study to identify additional cost-effective water quality-based or focused projects within the lower basin. And that's the theme that you'll see through each of these basins in each of these areas, the fact that we're going to be doing these feasibility studies. Excuse me. The next priority we have is the Northern Coastal Basin. This is an area that includes the coastal areas from Nassau, Duval, St. Johns, Flagler, and Volusia counties. This area has seen a tremendous amount of growth over the last decade, and with that growth that is expected to continue, especially in St. Johns, Flagler, and Flagler counties. The focus will be investigating additional data resources, facilitating development of water quality projects, and enhancing coastal resilience to address flooding risks. Some of the upcoming projects and initiatives within this. For this area, we actually don't have enough data. It's not sufficient for us to be able to evaluate water quality trends for inclusion in that status and trends report that I mentioned earlier. In the areas where the ocean inlets are, where there's good tidal exchange, water quality parameters are good. But staff is working to assemble and evaluate existing water quality data pertaining to the northern coastal basin, including shellfish harvesting areas, that is being collected by other stakeholders, federal, state, and local agencies for use in the evaluation of needs within the basin. The district's Northeast Florida Estuary Habitat Restoration Team, that's a mouthful, will continue to foster interagency coordination between regional, state, and federal agencies within the northern coastal basin to address issues of regional importance such as coastal resilience, estuarine habitat changes, and potential impacts from increasingly developed urban watersheds. The next priority is submerged aquatic vegetation. This is something we've heard about lately. We continue to investigate the potential stressors in SAV in the lower St. Johns River, as well as continue our research into SAV resilience and adaptive capacity. Ongoing and upcoming projects that we have for this, annual monitoring. The district staff has been conducting annual monitoring since 1995. Now, prior to the 2017's Hurricane Irma, the SAV formed dense, tall beds in the shallow water along all sections of the river. That had a tremendous impact, that storm, on the SAV. And since then, SAV beds in some portions of the river has shrunk by over 60%. A major factor impacting SAV recovery in the lower St. Johns is an increase in water depth and water color. Deeper, darker watercolors result in decreased light availability, and that impacts its growth and its ability to respond to stressors. The district is also, it's not listed on here, but we've launched an interactive dashboard displaying the graphs and maps and statistics from the district's annual SAV surveys so that people can see those. In addition to monitoring the SAV, we continue to do research on the SAV stressors to better understand the underlying mechanisms. The district and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has been evaluating the potential role of grazers in the river on SAV recovery, and has found that in the absence of grazing pressures where they've been in enclosures, SAV was found to recover without transplants or seedings and had growth rates similar to pre-Irma levels. Final one is flood mitigation, and this is, we've identified Deep Creek, and you saw this in some of the hurricane reports that we had before. The Hastings area experienced extensive and record-setting flooding during both Hurricanes Ian and Milton. In the upcoming year, we will be investigating possibilities to mitigate flooding for the area, which may range from de-snagging of Deep Creek if storm debris is slowing drainage to possible stormwater improvement options for this area. So in summary, these are the regional priorities that we've identified for the lower St. Johns Basin. Before I move on to the Ocklawaha Basin, I'd like to take a moment to see if anybody has any questions, comments, or feedback regarding these priorities. And I know I went through a lot of stuff really fast there. So,
is there any questions on the regional priorities for this particular basin? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you all. So we'll move on to the Ocklawaha River Basin. You see that some of them are very similar that we have here. Water supply and MFLs, water quality, water management and flood control, and natural systems restoration and management. For water supply, our focus is to continue the work that's already underway in conjunction with our regional water supply coordinators, planning to meet the future demands here, also while protecting the water resources. The foundation of water supply planning is conservation, along with alternative sources such as reclaimed water to help stretch traditional freshwater supplies. We also want to protect our springs and other water bodies through development and implementation and monitoring of minimum flows and levels for those water bodies that don't have them. Some ongoing projects and initiatives that we have. There are actually 3 regional water supply planning areas that take up parts of this Ocklawaha Basin. Again, because surface water basins don't necessarily go with groundwater use basins. So basin staff and agency staff continue to work diligently together to implement the goals that are contained within these plans. District staff has been holding meetings with local agencies to encourage water conservation, which includes efficient irrigation, minimization of potable water use, as well as the development of alternative water sources. Southern Lake County has seen tremendous growth in recent years, and there's a concern that current water supply is only available for consumption and not necessarily for irrigation. We are currently evaluating options for a study to identify supplemental sources of water to meet these needs so that we can meet this fast-growing area. We also have our successful, which they already mentioned, continuing on with our well abandonment program. Upcoming projects and initiatives within this basin. As you're aware from previous presentations, minimum flows and levels define the limit at which further water withdrawals would be significantly harmful to the water resources or the ecology of the area. Adopted MFLs are implemented through water supply planning programs and consumptive use permitting. The district's Bureau of Water Supply Planning has developed minimum flows and levels for Johns Lake, the Upper Ocklawaha River Basin chain of lakes, and Lake Weir. MFLs currently exist for Silver Springs and Lochloosa Lake in this area, and the adoption of an MFL for Apshua Lake South will be presented at next month's board meeting. On the water quality side of things, the Ocklawaha River Basin contains over 110,000 acres of freshwater lakes, including several outstanding waters. The majority of the waterways in the basin actually show decreasing trends in lake nutrients. And while these trends are good, there's much more work to be done here also. Even with the reductions, high nitrogen and phosphorus levels, which can contribute to harmful algal blooms, still prevail within these waterways. The district tracks nutrient loading in 20 lakes in the Ocklawaha River Basin that have TMDL loading targets, and we continue to work with our state and local partners to meet these nutrient targets. We will continue to monitor and collect water quality data in the basin. These data are used to calculate nutrient loading in the lakes and in support of ongoing district efforts, as well as for the development of future projects and initiatives. Some of these ongoing projects and initiatives related to water quality are listed here. Routine water quality sampling and monitoring helps us track the health of these waterways and identify areas that need improvement. An assessment of our monitoring efforts will be done to help identify areas where more information or increased monitoring may be necessary to accomplish these goals. We also plan to continue several water quality improvement projects within the Ocklawaha River Basin. We've purchased, with our purchase of the former floodplain marsh muck farms, has made substantial nutrient reduction in the basin. By purchasing and managing these properties, we've eliminated or substantially reduced contribution of those areas to the nutrient loading of the basin. The gizzard shad harvest at Lake Apopka typically removes about 1 million pounds of phosphorus annually, so continuing this project will be a priority for us. The Marsh Flowway, kind of the keystone project there for Lake Apopka, annually filters 30% of the volume of Lake Apopka, and since its operation in 2003, it has removed over 70,000 tons of suspended solids and 36 tons of phosphorus from the lake, and that's one of the main reasons we're seeing the rebound that we're seeing there within the lake. Some upcoming projects, once again, DEP providing funding to undertake a feasibility study to identify additional cost-effective water quality focused projects in the Upper Ocklawaha Basin. Significant work has already been done in this basin. However, the feasibility study will allow us to identify the next generation of projects for this area. Some others, the district is also cost sharing with the city of Winter Garden for a dredging project study for Newton Park located at Lake Apopka. We're also evaluating methods to reduce phosphorus levels in the Ocklawaha restoration area. And we continue to work with identifying and further reducing point and non-point sources of nutrients in our lakes and waterways. The last one is water management and flood control within the Ocklawaha River Basin. The district, this is one of the two areas of the St. Johns River area where the district provides flood control, navigation, and water level regulation within the upper Ocklawaha River Basin chain of lakes and the Ocklawaha River. The district conducts lock and dam inspections twice a year to assess the safety and operational functionality of these water control structures. Some of our ongoing projects within the basin, there are 11 water control structures. These structures regulate water levels and allow discharge to alleviate flooding. The district maintains and operates 4 of the water control structures and 1 emergency discharge structure. Lake County manages and operates 6 structures in the Claremont chain of lakes. The majority of these structures were built in the 1950s and 60s. We perform real-time hydrologic monitoring that is critical to the management of these water control structures and adherence to the regulation schedule, and we provide the public with access to this data through our website. The district also maintains levees associated with its restoration project through the basin, and that ties over to some of our upcoming projects and initiatives that we have. One being the repair of the Ocklawaha River C-231 levee shown here in the photo. This levee was built by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in early 1970s and borders the Sunny Hill Restoration Area. It provides about 5.8 square miles of public and private lands protection. Recent inspections have found seepage areas that need to be repaired, and that's on the schedule to be repaired. The Burrow Lock is scheduled to be refurbished this fiscal year. Additional refurbishment work is planned for Lake Apopka and Moss Bluff Lock and Dam. The work will replace aging mechanisms with modern technology, making them safer and more reliable. Another future project is to conduct flood modeling for the entire upper Ocklawaha River Basin and review lake level regulation schedules. This modeling will test differential rainfall scenarios and will be used to show areas where additional work is needed to reduce flooding potential throughout the upper Ocklawaha River Basin. The final one is natural systems restoration and management. And since the 80s, the district has purchased more than 50,000 acres throughout the basin. Active management work includes maintaining access for public recreation and for performing prescribed fires. Plant monitoring and mapping of the marsh and lake projects are critical to document changes and identify future projects and track the success of our restoration work that's going on there. Invasive plant control is critical to the Ocklawaha River Basin restoration areas and waterways. The large photo there shows an area up. I've got the wrong photo on this one. This shows the treatment areas that we did with the hydrilla. And you can see the differences, even though it doesn't look like it, it's much better in the photo on the right than the photo on the left. You see that the hydrilla is actually gone. Some ongoing projects is the continued restoration work through invasive plant treatments, replanting work, and hydrologic improvements of the floodplain marshes, including levee breaches at Emeralda Marsh. The district is performing several vegetation mapping projects of our lakes and wetlands. As I said before, these mapping help monitor changes, trends, and improvements in those areas. Lake Apopka and the Lake Apopka North Shore have several ongoing projects, including replanting of native emergent plants and submerged aquatic vegetation in Lake Apopka. The photo there shows Illinois pondweed that was planted and is successfully growing within Lake Apopka. Future management and vegetation mapping projects are planned for the floodplain wetland areas, including the Lake Apopka North Shore, Emeralda Marsh, and Sunny Hill. We have multiple upcoming projects for Lake Apopka restoration, and a few of these include the automation of 6 Lake Apopka North Shore pump stations to enable remote control of these facilities, constructing a parking lot at West Marsh this winter with the goal of opening a new public entrance in 2025 for passive recreation. And also some work has been going on to take care of Cuban bulrush, has already begun in the West Marsh. The photos show Cuban bulrush, an aggressive invasive plant that grows in marshes where it turns into floating mats. The bottom photo actually shows the shredding boat as it works to break up the floating mats after they've been treated. This is one technique where mechanical methods of plant management can be used to an effective end. So, come to the end. Here's the summary of the priorities for the Ocklawaha Basin. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right. Any questions on the Ocklawaha River Basin regional priorities? Any questions about any part of the presentation today? Yes, you're recognized.
I just wondered when the final plans will be out for the public.
So we're planning to continue this. We have another update next time, our next board meeting with the next two, Middle Basin and the Upper Basin and Indian River Lagoon Basin. Those will be done. We're going to go out to do some additional, after we get any feedback from the board, with some stakeholder groups. And the plan is to have it ready so that they can be incorporated into the strategic plan, which I think is March that we have to have that done by. So sometime between now and March is when we'd have those completed.
So do we, once we're there, do you have any plans for getting this out for public awareness?
Yes, we're in the process now of developing some brochures and things that make it more easily understandable so that we can communicate to people what we're doing and what projects are available that can be available to anybody that's interested. Hey, this is my area. What's going on? What are the needs? And what are some things that are being done about it? We expect that in next year's version, whenever we get some of these feasibility studies completed, it'll be a little bit more robust than some of the projects that are listed within it. Right now, we have projects within each of them, but we think that by completing those, we'll have a much better portfolio where we can have, here's the issue, if something needs to be done about it, here's some of the things that we can done, and then we can make funding decisions or apply for funding from DEP or other state sources so that we can get some of these projects underway.
Sounds good. Look forward to seeing you all.
Yes, you're recognized.
During a drawdown of the Ocklawaha, is there any studies or anything that we plan during those time periods to show water quality or effects on SAVs or the effects of nutrient levels during that time?
I don't think we're planning anything outside of our normal monitoring that we do within the area. I'll turn to Eric to see if there is something in there.
Recognize Mr. Marzoff.
A drawdown for Rodman Reservoir has been postponed this year by DEP because of the high water levels, trying to overcome a very wet conditions and perform a drawdown. So they've decided to not have a drawdown this year.
Any other comments or questions? Obviously, we are receiving information here on these two basins, and we're going to have similar presentations on the other basins.
Right.
I think at that point we'll have a fuller picture of the entirety of the district, right? And then it's an ongoing back and forth. Anything today or in future meetings that one wants to see injected into these things, let's talk about it as we move forward. I think this is a great reorganization. I think this is the way to best approach the challenges of the district. From an organizational standpoint, I think this is the best way to approach the challenges that we have as a district. So, great job.
Thanks to all the staff that worked really hard to get us here.
All right. Let's move to item 11, election of governing board officers. We will begin with nominations. Nominations can be made as a slate. They can be made with individual offices. Are there any nominations?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's on. Yeah. I'd like to nominate Mr. Rob Brantley for chair, Marianne Chiambi White for vice chair, Cole Oliver for treasurer, and Captain Chris Peterson for secretary.
All right. Are there any further nominations?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would just suggest that we're not broke. We don't need to fix nothing. And I would second the motion.
Okay. We're still in nomination phase. I haven't heard any more nominations. Would you like to make that slate
Second.
in the form of a motion?
I think he made the motion.
Well, he was doing nomination, but you want to do the motion?
I am so moved, and I move
Okay.
that the nominations for any further nominations cease.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the slate as presented, which is the existing officers. There's a second by Mr. House. Is there any discussion about the motion and the second on the election of the officers?
You're lucky you won the game this year.
Yeah,
I'm just teasing.
exactly. All right.
I'll wear mine too.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion is approved unanimously. I know I speak for the other officers in saying that it's a great honor to work with all of you. It really is. This is such an impressive group of individuals that we all get to enjoy, and it truly is an honor to serve on this board, much less in this position. So thank you very much. All right. We're going to move to item 12, public comment.
Yes, sir. We have several commenters today. First would be Mr. David Hill regarding Miller Lake in the Orange City area.
Mr. Hill, welcome.
Okay, thank you. My name's David Hill. I'm a graduate of the University of Florida and a Gator fan, but I root for all Florida colleges. Thank you for letting me speak about the flooding of Miller Lake. I live across from Miller Lake, and my property was not and has not been lakefront until the last 3 years. Miller Lake is a closed basin, and when it fills up, it takes forever to go down. Unknown to me, the flooding of Miller Lake started back in 2017 from a permit issued by St. John's Water Management number 144336-1 to the Royal Oaks Professional Center. This permit was for a storm drain to be installed across Tremont Drive for the Royal Oaks Professional Center exfiltration system to drain their excess water when the exfiltration system became saturated. This permitted drain was only to drain Royal Oaks Professional Center parking lot and building area. Unknown to the City of Orange City government and to St. John's Water Management, a storm drain from Wawa Lake was built and attached to this permitted storm drain across Tremont Drive. This storm drain from Wawa Lake was unpermitted when installed and not included in the 2017 St. John's Water Management permitted design. Because the exfiltration system of Royal Oaks Professional Plaza system is always saturated with water, and with the additional unpermitted and illegal water flow from Wawa Lake, I now know why Miller Lake has been flooded for the last 7 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This flawed Royal Oaks exfiltration system and the additional illegal water dumping took Miller Lake's traditional ability to handle major rain events away. Royal Oaks Professional Center is the lowest commercial property in the Saxon Enterprise Highway 1792 triangle. This triangle consists of hundreds of acres of heavy commercial and multifamily apartment complexes with their retention ponds at higher elevations than the Royal Oaks Professional Center. Many of these properties use Wawa Lake as their retention. Because Royal Oaks Professional Center is adjacent and below Wawa Lake, the exfiltration system of Royal Oaks Professional Plaza system is and will always be saturated with water. It is continually moving groundwater through the 2017 permitted and unpermitted system into Miller Lake. As I speak, the Royal Oaks Professional Center parking lot has been dry for 4.5 weeks, but the storm drain across Tremont Drive continues to flow with thousands of gallons of water per minute to Miller Lake. This was not the intent of the permitted drain. The system has contributed to the flooding of multiple homes, septic systems, wells, land, and Miller Road by 4 feet. Beautiful oak trees have died, are dying, and will die soon. Habitats have been destroyed, animals displaced or killed, and the aquifer could be in jeopardy at any moment with the flooding of wells. Paragraph 1 of the permit states, any deviations that are not so authorized may subject the permittee to enforcement action and revocation of the permit under Chapter 373 of the Florida statutes. The technical staff report for this report states the project is not anticipated to cause any adverse impact to the historic flood elevation within Miller Lake, and the impacts have been devastating. The 2017 St. John's Water Management Permit states under paragraph 17, if any adverse impacts result from this permitted system, the district will require the permittee to eliminate the cause. I'm asking you to please, you have the permit, take the enforcement actions and help us. Thus far, the City of Orange City, the County of Volusia, and the St. John's Water Management have all pointed fingers at each other, but your permit states that you have the ability to enforce actions, and I'm asking you, please enforce those actions. You know, we want our lake back. I grew up on that lake. I raised my family on that lake.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Thank you.
Next, Margaret Hill of Orange City.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hull. You're recognized.
Having us.
Of course.
Margaret Hill. I'm David's wife. I live at 340 Miller Road, across from Miller Lake. And let me start by saying, beginning, there is a permit that is under review right now for St. John's Water Management for a Murphy USA that, if you read the permit, it's going to dump into the same drainage system, causing a problem. Please do not approve that permit for them to add additional water. It's permit number 223414-1. So our house is across the street from what used to be a very small Miller Lake, and now we have lakefront property and a mess in our front yard. Our neighbors have water next to their houses, over their wells, in their septics. We used to have large, beautiful trees, so the flooding has never been like this before. We no longer have that. They are dying. Wetlands, habitats, dry lands are all being destroyed. This is not caused by natural drainage from a horrible storm. This is caused by an unpermitted drain and a permitted drain across Tremont Drive that is now draining into Miller Lake. Started in 2017. This just brought it to our attention. The residents didn't know about this permit. It's permit number 144336-1 that's continuing to allow this. As David said, it says in that permit that you have the ability to stop it. So we're asking you, please look at the permit and do what it says that you're able to do in order to stop the drainage and make Royal Oaks modify what they have and stay off of Miller Lake. Miller Lake is a closed basin. I'm sure that you didn't intend to destroy Miller Lake itself, the wetlands, the dry lands, the habitats, private property. I'm sure you didn't intend to take Royal Oaks flooding problems, which they've had as long as I know that they've existed, and put it into Miller Lake. But unfortunately, that's what's happened. Please don't let it become a county or city issue. They're pointing fingers at you back and forth. It makes no sense. Don't be influenced saying that this is natural water drainage. This is from this permit, and it's been happening and we just didn't know it. Either contact them and tell them to do something about it, or please do it yourselves. It's your permit. Thank you.
Give Ms. Hill.
I apologize if I mispronounce this one. Josu Rivera.
Afternoon, Mr. Rivera.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm also from Miller Road. We live right next to each other. Miller Road is currently still dealing with major flooding issues. At this very moment, there's water still flowing into Miller Pond, as they've stated previously. We're asking for help, for your assistance, whatever you can do for us to help stop the water flow, remove the water that's there, eliminate the poorly designed drainage system that's causing the flooding from commercial properties east of 1792, approved by the St. John's Water Management District. Homes, wells, septic systems, land, AC systems, barns, sheds with expensive equipment in them, pool equipment are all currently underwater. We're asking for assistance to take immediate emergency action to help our flooding situation, as there is another potential hurricane that's going to come, and if that comes, it's going to be really bad. Worse than it is now. We need long-term solutions to prevent this major flooding from happening in the future, and we would greatly appreciate anything you could do to help us. We'll be happy to help, to work together to find solutions. You guys have my phone number. I'm available 24/7. Whatever needs to be done, we're more than willing to help, find solutions, whatever needs to get done. They stated the permits that are causing this. You know, this is people's private properties, their animals, trees, all types of, natural things. This is not natural. This water is coming through covert pipes that are being navigated to a private property and just flooding everyone's property. Everyone knows what the right thing is to do. Just all I'm asking is please do it. So, thank you.
Mr. Anthony Frank.
Howdy, how y'all doing this morning or this afternoon? My name's Tommy. I live on Miller Road. I've owned property out there since before 2000. Over the course of the years, I have seen 3 to 4 homes that have been flooded out. Now, mind you, these are homes that the county issued building permits for. It's okay to build here. It's not a flood zone. It's not this. It's not that. There's been 4 of them lost over the years. One at a time. One year, I think 2 of them got taken out. Right now, this one storm Milton that came through, there's 4 homes on the verge of being lost just from this one. People are still in it. Most of them are here. And that's just on Miller Road. It doesn't count the ones across on the other side on Shady Lane. I'm sure there's 3 or 4, if not more, on that side. But these are all homes that were permitted to build on. And these are all homes that are being flooded by businesses that just run their water from all directions into a culvert, into a drain that goes right under 1792 and comes out a 3-foot pipe right into private property, Miller Lake. It's wrong. It needs to be addressed. The one thing that I keep getting a lot of when this all started, if you call the city, they say, well, you're in the county, it's not our problem. And then the county says, no, it's a state issue. Everybody's wanting to pass the buck. Buck stops somewhere, and they tell me the buck stops here because you guys are in charge of most of the water stuff, So we need your help. Now, I heard earlier in this discussion that there's a lot of projects that y'all are working on where a lot of water is going to be needed. Hey, come get our water. Consider Christmas come early. You can have it. Just come get it. No problem. We welcome your help. We need your help. We don't have any place else to go because beyond you guys, who are we going to go to? The feds? They're not going to help us. We need you.
Catherine Levinson, also Orange City.
Afternoon, Ms. Levinson.
Good afternoon to you. It's after 12. My name is Catherine Levinson. I live on Shady Lane, which is the opposite side from my friends over there. And I bought my house in 2021. I bought it 3 dry acres, beautiful, lakefront, beautiful. I now am probably down to 1.5 acres, maybe 2 acres. And the water came up to 10 feet to my back door. So you buy a dry lot. It was 2021. Here comes Hurricane Ian, who flooded a lot of the lake. It seems like we didn't realize at that point that the water was coming in through the culvert. Also, they forgot to mention that Orange City actually uses that pipe too to dump all of their water there. So that means the southwest corner of Orange City dumps their water there. We did not realize it at the point. We do now, because after Hurricane Ian, the water never went down since our lake is basically a bathtub. Water comes in, it does not drain out. So here comes the next one, Milton. And Milton basically had no real effect on us. Yes, it's true. It was an 11-inch storm. We got that. We got wind, but the 11 inches came in. It didn't really do much because Hurricane Ian had already raised it from the discharge from the city. We didn't know, but we do now. Anyway, so the water stayed the same. I have photos of everything from prior to the hurricane to today, actually. And after Hurricane Milton, all of a sudden, every day, water's increasing. And now, where I bought, where it was 150 feet dry, is now all the way up to 10 feet to my house. Think about that. I have no flood insurance. In fact, I don't think any of us do. Because why? You're on a dry lot. It's not required. Well, here we are. So now what do we do? So I went and put 25 loads of dirt in my back, which I think has saved right now my house. But here comes this other storm that's out in the Gulf getting ready to come this way. All the projective lines, it takes us right to Volusia County. Did you know that? It's right here, all of them. So if it comes this way, which I don't know that it will, but it says Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, I don't know what's going to happen. Because if the city is still permitted and all the other people to drain into our lake, I don't know. Because now the water is washing down. It hit the nursing home. There's a nursing home at the end. They had to evacuate all the nursing home patients. They've had emergencies where they can't get to people because it's private property. So the county says they can't come in and touch it because it's private. The city says we don't belong to them because we're unincorporated. So you are our last resort. We need help. I've had Cammie Dewey out. She's a wonderful lady. I like her very much, but her hands are tied because we need the water taken out. Now that it's been put in illegally, that we know, now it needs to come out. And we need that done like right away, please. That's what we're asking for. So we just need evacuation of water. That would help tremendously. Thank you. By the way, I did not go to Gainesville or wherever. I didn't go there. I went to FIU, South Florida.
Panthers.
The next, I believe, has withdrawn. Mr. Grass, I believe, has just wanted to confirm he did not wish to speak or has left.
Or Mr. How do you spell it?
Kevin Grass, Grass.
Is there a Mr. Grass here? Raise your hand if you are Mr. Grass. Not here. All right. Thank you.
And then lastly, Miss Vivian Katz James.
All right.
Katz James, President Save Our Lakes organization. I want to thank you all for coming to our Black Creek celebration. We decided, we were so confident that it was going to be finished that we just went ahead and said, we're going to celebrate. And so we had a great time. We had some good fried fish and chicken, and we had entertainment, and we had a great ski show that I missed because I'm inside talking to people. But anyway, I've got pictures of it, and it was really great. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, the staff, for coming and supporting that. Thing I want to talk to you about today, in fact, Mike's report, he mentioned something, natural systems restoration. Okay. And I call this also the exclamation point for the Black Creek project. It's Lake Geneva. So for 50 years, Florida's population exploded, water demand increased exponentially, and Lakes Brooklyn and Geneva are one of the major recharge areas for the Floridan aquifer. So guess what happened? They started drying up. So for 50 years, the lakes have been low enough, especially in Geneva, that you actually have forest growing, true forest. We've had logging companies out there. They're ready to come in and take the trees out. So what we have now is the Lake Geneva Restoration Project that your staff has been very helpful in working with us, working with DEP and whatever. So this is not, I'm not here to complain. I'm just here to give you guys the information. I'm going to give you some information I'm going to leave with you when I quit talking. And if you would look at it, because all we're asking for is the area, the boat ramp area for going into Lake Geneva that opens up the whole lake for recreation is totally encircled by trees. You can't get out. You can't use it. So we're asking that that area be removed. There's another large forested area that blocks off the western lobes of Lake Geneva. Okay, so we're asking that that area be removed. The rest of it basically would be up to individuals. There's a lot of growth in the area just in front of individual homes. That will be up to the individual, but I'm asking kind of some help from the staff to say, give us some instructions about how we go about doing that, so that maybe we can, if we get the logging company out, that maybe some of those trees can be removed at the same time. So I'm going to leave this with you. If you would take about 20 minutes and look at it. And if you look at, we've got two front pages of our newsletter that pretty much explains both of those areas that I'm talking about. And the very last page actually circles the area that we're talking about. So thank you.
Thank you, and that was a wonderful celebration. Appreciate you hosting. Thank you to all of our Sabre Lakes friends for that wonderful celebration. We were honored to be a part of it. All right, items 13 through, that was item, any more?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Okay, item 12, that concludes item 12, public comment. Items 13 through 28 have been approved previously via the consent agenda. We're going to move to item 29, which is Ms. Preston and her report on pending litigation. You're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board, or excuse me, good afternoon. I have a couple of updates on pending matters and a couple of matters that were resolved over the last couple of months. The first case is Bear Warriors United and several others versus the Department of Transportation and the district. This case is on appeal from a district final order entered in March after a challenge to an environmental resource permit issued to the department for a road project in Volusia County. The petitioners filed their initial brief on September 10th, and the district and the department filed our answer briefs respectively on October 18th. The next step in that process is an optional reply brief that would be due November 18th if the petitioners wish to file one. The next case is the Merrimans versus the district and several others pending in federal court for the Middle District of Florida. This is multiple claims against the district based on concerns related to an environmental resource permit in Clay County. The district defendants were served with process over the course of a few days in mid-September. The district filed a motion to dismiss on October 8th, and then on October 30th, the court struck the complaint. So currently there's no complaint pending. The plaintiffs do have the option to try to file an amended complaint. That's due November 19th. You all also have copies of the motion that the district filed and the order at your place in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions either here or individually on an individual basis if you would like. The last matters are two matters that were resolved, actually three, over the last couple of months. The first is a motor vehicle accident case that was pending in Volusia County in circuit court. The accident occurred in February of 2021 and involved a district vehicle. This was settled at mediation on November 1st. The next case is David and Lynn Robeson versus the district and several others. This is a case that had been pending since 2016. The plaintiffs had claims related to a development near their properties. They sought against the district injunctive relief and attorney fees. I'm happy to report that a settlement was reached at mediation and the case was dismissed with prejudice on October 15th. The district did not pay any damages or attorney's fees. The last case is a wetland delineation petition that was filed by an entity called MOF Lake LLC for administrative petition regarding a formal wetland determination in Lake County. That was filed on September 13th. District staff was able to meet with the petitioner and discuss their concerns. I'm happy to report that that petition was withdrawn on September 23rd. So this concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Preston. Any questions for our law firm? All right. Governing board comments. Item 30. Anyone? Okay. Item 31, Executive Director's Report and Calendar.
Go ahead and go to the first slide. In September, our Bureau of Environmental Sciences scientists partnered with DEP scientists to cross-train on the collection and incubation of sediment cores from the St. Johns River. Over the next year, they'll continue collecting samples from the river and its major lakes. This work will help us refine our estimates of nutrient recycling from sediments and enhance DEP's developing water quality model for the St. Johns River. Next. We already heard about quite a bit about district responses to Hurricane Helene and Milton. I just wanted to express my thanks to the staff, especially those that man the Emergency Operations Center, Chris and Greg, and also a big staff to all the people that work through office closures, monitoring the storm impacts, and doing some work that needed to be done, regardless of if our offices were closed. And thanks to the land management staff for getting our property open as quickly as they could for people to utilize. Next slide. In addition, and as they mentioned, clearing our own property, some district staff extended their support by assisting the Suwannee River Water Management District. I got a note from their executive director expressing their appreciation for us going out there and helping them, even though our help got a little delayed by the other storm. But it's always good to be able to help out a sister agency through our mutual aid agreements. Next. Our communications team was excited to welcome General Burnett in the field to share the district's mission of protecting Florida's water supply. General Burnett highlighted how the district work helps create sustainable water future for our state. It was a beautiful morning, and we're looking forward to sharing his message with the community. Look for his message on our social media platforms and the district's YouTube channel soon. For calendaring, the district will be closed November 28th and 29th for Thanksgiving. The next governing board meeting is for the 10th, and then that is also the day that we will be having our holiday luncheon, and all the board members are invited to partake in that holiday luncheon with staff.
All right, well, let's keep our fingers crossed that we all stay safe from any potential storms as this hurricane season drones on and threatens us once again. I personally want to say that I'm satisfied and pleased with the interaction and information during storms. And I wanted to inquire of my colleagues on the board if they felt the same way, and if there was anything else that you would like to see during these events that impact the district, than anything different than you're seeing or getting right now. Is there anything? Anyone? Okay, great. I feel the same way. And I just wanted to check in there. Yeah, no problem.
Mr. Chairman, I felt
Yes.
I absolutely enjoyed getting the reports as Mr. Register will send us. So I think this path is moving forward. The path was great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Miriam. I appreciate that. All right. Seeing no further items before the board today, seeing no further discussion or comments, this meeting is adjourned.
Right. Got over fast. I thought we were going to be here till 4 o'clock. Yeah.